I'm here today at my local bakery with my local baker, Sashin. Thank you so much for having me here.
My pleasure.
Now, this is one of Australia's oldest bakeries, and it's such a privilege, I guess, for me that you are my local baker, because Sashin makes what I think is some of the most beautiful bread that I've ever tasted. It's artisan organic sourdough bread, and it's made by hand from scratch with pure ingredients. So Sashin, can you tell me a little bit about sourdough? What actually does sourdough mean? Because we see it everywhere nowadays, but I have a feeling that not all sourdoughs are created equal.
Sourdough is the way of making bread where you don't use any yeast or any substance to make it rise. So you use the flour and water to make the culture, which is called the wild bacteria, and you can call it the lactobacillus bacteria. And then you mix it with extra water and flour and a little bit salt, and that's what makes a great bread.
It's really just 4 ingredients. So you've got flour, water, salt, and then the bacteria that you're creating with no yeast.
No yeast.
So that's really, really different to a lot of breads out there, especially commercially made breads, which have, I guess, a lot of different things added to it. And also are made with yeast, so it rises quickly. I'd love for you to share with me how you actually make your bread. Start from scratch. Let's find out how traditional bread is made.
So the right process of the bread is to have the flour, which is organic and unbleached, because lots of people use bleached flour to make it bread looks wider. And then you have the culture, which is, I call it wild bacteria, which is I have with me with the last 5 years. It's only flour and water.
So this is really what makes your bread unique, is this thing here. So this is like your goal.
This is my baby.
So what happens next?
I mix the dough using the flour, water, salt, and the culture all in here.
Wow, this is incredible. It looks very old.
This is 1930.
Wow.
And this is one of the oldest mixer you can find,
Really?
and which is very slow and very gentle for the dough, so it doesn't break down the dough. And it's like a hand mixing. So after mixing the dough from here, we take it out, put it in the tub for 4 to 6 hours.
So you rest it.
Rest the dough.
That's really critical, isn't it?
That is the critical part of the sourdough, because you gotta rest your doughs minimum 6 to 8 hours.
Okay.
So that resting process, process the sugar into the dough, which all the wheat have sugar, which process into low GI, and then it processes the gluten, which makes it more digestible for you, and all the nutrition from the bread, it is available into your body.
So if you're making it this traditional way, you shouldn't have problems digesting bread. But I guess because bread isn't made this way anymore in a commercial sense, people are having a lot of issues with bread, and it's kind of given bread a bad rap. So after you've mixed it, it's the resting process.
So after the mixing and the resting, the dough is like this. So it's quite...
Can I touch it? Whoop, it's like blubber. So the resting process is really important. So this bread has been rested for how long?
4.5 hours.
4.5 hours.
So far, and then it's gonna shape and rest again.
All right, so from here, what's gonna happen?
I will show you how to shape the bread.
I'm very excited by this. I love these scales. Like, how old school are you? Like, we're not even using electric scales here. You've got your little weights. I mean, it's beautiful. Everything that you're using is traditional. It's old. Your oven is from the 1850s.
1850s,
you're telling me. And you're doing everything by hand. So, of course, it's going to taste a whole lot better. But I actually have bought in some, well, I wouldn't say presents, because I'm sure you're not really used to seeing things like this. But I've bought in some loaves of bread that are commercially made. So these are quite different to yours. And I've also got what is marketed as a traditional loaf, and also white bread. So this loaf of sourdough contains yeast, which you said sourdough traditionally doesn't
contain yeast, and the yeast and the sourdough do not work together. So the yeast always win on top of the sourdough. So this is not a sourdough bread, this is a yeasted bread with the sourdough flavor.
Right. And what I found interesting about these loaves of bread, they have 10 to 15 ingredients in them.
Wow.
Some of the ingredients you can't even pronounce, so that they've shortened them to just numbers. So food additive 471, food additive 460, so you actually don't even know what you're eating.
No, you don't. So better to have the bread which has 4 ingredients.
I think so. So every one of your loaves
Is hand-shaped and rest for 6 to 8.5 hours.
Your bread is organic and you're using all organic products. Why do you choose to do that?
Because we want to reduce the chemicals they used into the production of the wheat, and that's probably not good for the healthy life. So you want to use most of the ingredients are organic. Like I use 100% organic ingredient in the bakery, except the salt, because salt is from Pink Lake.
I think you're okay there. These loaves now need to be rested, and then you're going to cook them in one of Australia's oldest ovens. So can you show me the oven?
Yeah, of course. This is a wood fire oven. That's where you put the woods in here, and that's where it collects all the ashes and the coal. And that is the wood fire oven.
Wow, you could fit a lot of loaves in there.
It takes 50 in one go.
Really?
Yeah.
And how hot does the oven get?
It goes to 600 degrees and then it starts cooling down, and we start baking on 350.
And how long does one loaf of bread take?
15 minutes.
Wow.
So the whole deck of oven, 50 bread.
So you fill it up?
Yes, I fill it up, and that comes out in 15 minutes. They're all baked.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. It's a wonderful thing.
And you can just taste your passion for bread making in your bread. I mean, not everyone is going to be as fortunate as I am to have you as my local baker, but what would your suggestions be for people that might not have an artisan bakery around? Where can they find this type of bread?
There are good breads available in lots of farmers market. So probably go and buy the bread from them and check the ingredient before you buy the bread.
And what about people that want to try cooking their own bread at home?
I think the bread making is a good thing to learn and to do, because then you can provide a good bread to your family and for your friends.
Look, it's one of the oldest things I think us humans have been doing since we've been able to process wheat.
Yes.
We've been eating it for thousands of years, and I don't think we should quit now, but I think we should be just eating the right types of bread. So I think you've really shown me today how to make beautiful traditional artisan bread. Now there's one more question that I have to ask you. What are your tips for living a wholehearted life?
Knowing the ingredient, what you're eating, and giving space to everything and breathing, that's what I say, you can live a wholehearted life.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today, and I've really learned a lot.
Thanks a lot for coming in and talking about my passion.
Yeah, and if you're near St Andrew's Bakery in the outskirts of Melbourne in the Yarra Valley, make sure you stop by here.
Thank you.